a targeted effort by ICE, which means they are going after specific individuals. We could surmise as to why they're going after those specific individuals. The chief could give us an idea about that, perhaps. But I do want to say that this is completely contrary to city policy. We have not had any issues regarding legal or illegal immigrants in our community. I want to emphasize that in the past, where there has been dangerous criminal activity on the part of a illegal person, that the Madison Police Department has cooperated. And we're very disappointed in how ICE and the federal government are conducting themselves, and we are going to make our best effort to work with community leaders and to make sure that the rights of those individuals in ICE's custody are fully protected, and we'll maintain our commitments as a city who has previously and will continue to support legal resources for all those within our borders in the boundaries of the city. So, Shiva?
Thank you, Mayor. Shiva Bidar-Siraf, Alder for District 5 and member of the many organizations that are represented in our community that are working in protecting the rights of our immigrant community and specifically our undocumented immigrant community. Proud member of a city council who voted to make sure that our city continues to protect the rights of our undocumented immigrant community. So I just wanted to let you know that the facts that we know as of right now is that we think that there's been about 6 people who have been arrested today by the ICE presence in our city. Chief Koval will talk a little bit more about what the expectations have been in the past of communication and the fact that those expectations were not met in this operation right now that's ongoing from ICE in our city. As the mayor said, we want to emphasize that for what we know, these arrests have been targeted. That means based on a list that ICE has. Do not ask me how they come up with the list, why people are on that list, but it's based on a list, and we want to be very cautious in saying that because we do not want to send a message that there is a massive race going on in our city and creating any sense of additional panic, although our community is certainly on edge already, and as of these last few hours, even more on edge, and I'm sure Karen will talk a bit more about that. We do have resources available in our city, and Karen will talk more about it. We do have legal representation available for those who are going to find themselves in a potential deportation process based on these ICE arrests, and we want to make sure that people understand what their resources are that are available to them, and that people understand what their rights are in their contact with immigration and customs enforcement. And again, I want to be extremely clear from the city of Madison, as you heard from our mayor and as you're hearing from me as a member of our city council, that in no way or shape we are cooperating in this kind of enforcement. That, as the mayor said, if in the past there have been situations in which there were offenders with high level of criminal charges and felonies, that has been a very different process, but that we in no way are cooperating or think it is okay to just come within our city of Madison and start this kind of enforcement without informing the elected members of our city government, such as our mayor or our chief of police, of the actions. So with that, I think I'll turn it to the chief.
Thank you all.
Just by way of providing some context, when I first became chief, one of the priorities was to ask the regional offices of ICE to come up to Chicago so that we could have a meeting. And I wanted to make it very clear that we weren't losing anything in any translation or being paraphrased or working through intermediaries, that ours is a community of inclusiveness that is bound and determined to provide access to everyone, and that it is counterintuitive for us who are committed to the doctrine of community policing to suggest that a legal fiction would impede or impair our ability to provide those services to everyone. And frankly, I don't know that we can have a good index on what public safety issues are in our midst if there are people who are hesitant to report when they're the victims, or even if they've been the witnesses to crime. So as we sat around a table similar to this, we made that very clear, and we said, under no uncertain terms, that our code of conduct, our SOP, our standard operating protocols were such that we will never countenance or be a party to any civil deportation proceedings. We asked and we received the blessing that, at minimum, in order to continue a good working relationship with this federal authority, that it was appropriate that, at least for their safety, so sometimes they have plainclothes operations, that they would contact my assistant chief personally, Chief Gaber, and in that instance they would tell them where they're going to be, what time the operation is staged, and what is the basis of those charges. That's how we've been operating for the last 4.5+ years. And they understand full well that it's one thing if they, as another law enforcement agent or agency, is at peril. Of course we're going to back them up to the hilt. But in the norm, we're not going to engage in sort of the run-of-the-mill. Some have called them roundups, some have called them raids, whatever the vernacular. We're not going to be part and parcel of that in any shape or form. And I think we had a good understanding of that, and have throughout the 4.5 years. So what's different this time is that perhaps owing to a change in the supervisory command structure, I'm not quite certain, but when we have historically been told before or even on the day of the event, if there are dynamic circumstances, we've been told where, when, and why. And in this instance, they may have notified the 911 center, which of course is a separate entity altogether. It's Dane County, and there is absolutely no reliability that that hand is going to necessarily know to communicate and to whom within our own agency. And again, it reflects a departure of how we've handled things for the last 4.5 years. So nothing has changed in terms of the MPD response. We are not going to enable, countenance, assist in what I call just those deportation issues that aren't of the sort of substance that shows that someone is a serious, violent, or predatory criminal. That's what we've always said, and that's what we continue to do. We are trying as best we can to be emboldened in trying to have everybody feel a part of the diversity of this community, and everybody contributes to the vibrancy of this city and our quality of life. And to that extent, those sort of situational days like today, relatively unannounced in the sense of letting us all on the same page of what those targets are and what the underlying conditions are. Unfortunately, that has led, as you can see, to a community now in hyper-warp distress mode. I know, having networked with a lot of the luminaries here who are the face and very much engaged with everything to do with migrant communities and those who are not documented status legally, that we feel the fear, the trepidation, the apprehension, and how difficult it is just to go about your business on a daily way, not to worry about who's going to swoop in and under what circumstances and the where. We have alliances, we have partnerships with the Madison schools and so many others. And as Alder Sheba Bedard mentioned, this council, this mayor, has made a concerted effort in a very high profile and public way to underline that there are places and pockets within city governments and building entities which are safe zones and where where we can get folks to get legal representation, or we can stall or delay or at least communicate what those issues are to people who have the capacity to change that trajectory. And in this instance, this is relatively a departure from what we've seen historically, and it's one that I hope that we can reconcile working through their chain of command in the future. So now I'm going to hand it over to Karen to give you a sense of the dynamics that she's encountering.
Yeah, so I'm Karen Menendez-Collar, the Executive Director of Centro Hispano. And I guess I'm just here to reiterate to those in the community not to be afraid of what they've been listening to. As was discussed here, these are targeted efforts by ICE. It's still surprising that this has happened without them clearly explaining why. There's not going to be a partnership in this work with them, and we're going to stand strong. We're ready for anything. We have spent 2-3 years developing a number of collaboratives, including a legal collaborative that can help in any kind of situation. And that's the piece that I want to emphasize right now. Thanks to the support of the City of Madison and the County of Dane, we have a legal collaborative that can help when it comes to deportation defense, any type of legal issue that any of the citizens here in Madison and Fitchburg may face. So I want to make sure and make clear that if those individuals that are being targeted or separated, that they know that there's a number to call. And that number is to Fabiola Hamdan. She's our Office of Immigration Affairs representative. The number is 242-6260. So I'll repeat it again. It's 608-242-6260. It's imperative that any family member that is related to an individual that might have been apprehended today call the number immediately so that we can assist with legal defense. The timing is critical, and we want to make sure that that support comes in due time. Needless to say, we're devastated. We always are, but I think we've come to expect the worst, and the city is ready to prepare and prepared to defend against anything. So thank you. Thanks so much.
Let me just...
Yes, I'll say it again. It's 608-242-6260.
Okay, before we do
Yeah, please
questions,
Go ahead.
One more thing that I wanted to emphasize too is that we're working collaboratively to have a message that we are going to be sharing with the community to make sure again that we express that these are again not raids, these are targeted enforcement, and that we reiterate some of the work that we've been doing for a long time, which is a know your rights for immigrant community, and that we pass that message and we'll be doing that through kind of our city social media, but also all of our other social media, so that we can again make sure that the message gets to our communities about what their rights are, what the assistance is if any of their family members encounter ICE, and again make sure that they understand that at this point we are not seeing any raids, but again targeted enforcement.
one of the things that we've all said at previous discussions and previous press conferences, I want to repeat now. All of us leave the home, usually in the morning. We go to work, we go to school. And we expect to reconvene with our family and friends at the end of the day. For some families and friends here, not just Madison, throughout the country, every morning there is a deep concern as to whether or not the family will be united in what we would consider a routine manner that evening. And after discussing this and talking about the stress that it creates every single day, it has happened here. We are going to stand with these families. And we have, in this last city and county budget, put in funds for the utilization of legal services. And while the operating budget for next year has not been formally introduced, I want to emphasize and assure people that we are putting funding in again in 2019. We are not going to be deterred from our mission. We are not going to succumb to this kind of pressure. And I would hope that our governor, as an elected official here in the state, would speak out on our behalf, on behalf of everybody involved, not just those who've been targeted, but their families, their friends, their employers, because we know full well, particularly in regards to agriculture, without both documented and undocumented employees, one of the most important industries in our state, the dairy industry, could not survive. So with that, questions of any of us?
Mayor, could I read a statement in
Please.
Spanish? That,
Yes.
Okay,
Please.
so I'll say this in Spanish. Estimadas familias de la Comunidad Latina, por este medio hacemos de su conocimiento que el Departamento de Inmigración se encuentra en nuestra ciudad realizando arrestos a personas que tienen identificadas en una lista y que enfrentan orden de deportación o que previamente han sido arrestados por ICE con récord criminal. Se suplica a toda la ciudadanía que por favor se mantengan al margen de la situación, que no se expongan durante las próximas horas y que se limiten a solo salir de sus casas por cuestiones de trabajo o escuela. En la próxima hora se realizará una rueda de prensa con el alcalde, que es lo que estamos viendo ahorita, y miembros de la comunidad, que siempre trabajarán con sus recursos para promover planes de emergencia en dada situación. Por favor, compartan este mensaje con otras personas que están escuchándolo. Hay que tener precaución. Como dijo Alder Shiva Pidarsilaf, esto no es algo que están haciendo ruedas ni nada de eso, pero hay que seguir adelante con precaución. Y otra vez les voy a dar el número de teléfono porque lo dije en inglés. Si tienen alguna pregunta o están en esta situación que han separado a un familiar o que han venido a tomar sus seres queridos, por favor, háblenle a Fabiola Hamdan. El número de teléfono es 608-242-6260. Y ya les puede dar auxilio con respecto a ayuda legal y otro tipo de ayuda que se necesite. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. You had a hand?
I had a question for Chief Koval. You said that typically the practice is that ICE has contacted you the day before or possibly the day of. I guess I'm curious how often that has been happening, and if there was any sort of trend that you noticed from previous calls.
Again, that has been the protocol. The protocol has been that they have Chief Randy Gaber's direct work cell, which he maintains 24/7, because it's that much of a priority that the access be provided. And normally when we get that call, when Chief Gaber gets that call, it is literally where we're going to be, when we're going to be there, what is the focus, and what are the underlying charges. Now, to some extent, I am hoping that there may be a more benign reason that the communication through a change of supervision may have ultimately been responsible for this. But at the end of the day, where people's very lives are involved, I would hope that there had been that nominal sort of communication to understand that we carry that phone 24/7 for a reason, and people go on vacation, they can be out at training. The entire department seemingly was out at the Middleton shooting event, obviously, on Wednesday. So if you're going to go through dispatch or some other sort of voicemail tree, that's ineffective. And not to mention the fact that it doesn't really tell us any of the particulars. Just to say we're going to be in your town is hardly sufficient for our purposes.
How did you find out about these detentions?
Well, ultimately, once we learned that there had been this sort of communication string through dispatch and then subsequently through a conventional department line, we seized upon that opportunity to direct contact with them to try to elicit more information. I think that to some extent we were perhaps in a very good place because historically that information has been very free-flowing and has been in real time, contemporaneous. I think there's a little more reticence now, except to say from their agent safety standpoint, we want to let you know if we're in your city because we don't want to be misunderstood if officers are called to respond and we misidentify federal agents from the objects of their apprehension. So it has been a little bit, in that sense, back to your question, we have not seen this sort of sense of frequency lately. It has been much more sporadic, and I hope this is, in fact, isolated and we can build a safe wall around it.
Can you give us more details about the activity? Where are these people? Are they dreamers? Are they adults with criminal history?
My understanding, limited though it is that it was targeted at a workplace as people were going to or assembling from staging at a workplace. So I think it was more worker-driven from what little information has been passed to me.
But again, I want to emphasize, we're not talking about the same workplace, and we're not talking about a raid. Okay, so I just want to be clear that correct. So
Yeah.
these were people on a list at different workplaces. So again, I want to emphasize again that we're not talking about what we know as a raid, which is going into one place. So several different. And then I want to also say that you asked about how we get to know about this thing, and I want to emphasize that, through Centro, Hispano, through the mayor's office and Gloria Reyes representing the mayor's office, myself and some others, we do have a very close network. We communicate constantly, so as soon as there is a situation that happens, we other members are here, Grisel is here. We really communicate and get to know very quickly, and as soon as we see a spike, we also communicate back and know that something's going on. So I think, and I mentioned that to, again, try to tell the community that they need to be very cautious, but that also that we're here and we're ready to respond, and that we have created some systems that hopefully can be of assistance in these times of ICE presence in our city.
Have any of you been in contact with any of the families affected by this?
I have not been directly in contact, nor I think Fabiola Hamdan and Aisa Olivares, who are the ones that kind of get in touch with the legal assistance, may have, but I haven't.
I know the school district sent an email, I think.
Can I add one thing about calling Fabiola with that phone number? She's going to be busy, and so leave a message. If there's no answer, leave a voice message for her, because she can't talk to 3-4 people at the same time.
And also the intent was for people who are encountering ICE situation to call Fabiola, not for everybody who wants to talk to her and see how she does her work. At this point in time, I hope we can give her that time to deal with the families.
Has anyone from the city been in contact with any ICE officials or the Chicago office since this has happened?
Oh, that's our intention on Monday. If we can't get some greater clarification from the district supervision chain, that will be the next tier.
It's very disappointing that they did this on a Friday. It's disappointing that they did it at all. But doing it on a Friday is really difficult and challenging, because now we go right into the weekend, and all the people with protective services, legal services, while many of them will give up their weekends, offices are closed, and that poses a challenge. I just want to point out the council president, Sam Babal, is here, and I don't know if you want to share any words.
I can say one of the things. I missed the beginning of the press conference. I'm not privy to everything that happened. But all I want to say is just to reiterate the city's commitment and our local law enforcement commitment to protecting our residents and doing everything that is possible to make sure that they are safe. Sometimes that is impossible just because we are also part of a state and also a country. The good thing is that our law enforcement, our local enforcement, our mayor, and obviously the council and people like Siva and others are really committed to doing whatever is possible to help this community out. This is really a serious situation. Just this Tuesday, a very good friend of mine came to my house on over the weekend, actually. Then he said, Sambo, I'll come back sometime on Monday to drop copy of my house keys, my credit card, my bank cards, and all this kind of stuff, and leave it with you. I'm supposed to report to ICE on Tuesday. Luckily, he went there and then came back. When I got the email that the mayor was doing a press conference around ICE, I called the mayor's office to find out what really is happening. And so the first thing I did was to call my friend and other friends. I mean, coming here, I've called about at least 4 or 5 people, just letting them know of what is going on. So this is for real. And these are friends with kids. You know, they have families here. Those kids are Americans. So it is our responsibility also to, whatever we are doing, to have at the back of our minds that we are also impacting people that we consider legal. Everybody, in my opinion, is legal. There's no illegality in this world. It's a global thing. We have divisions of countries and all that, but we made those divisions. So why should we terrorize people? This is no less than terrorism, I mean, in my opinion. So I'm glad that the mayor office, the council, the elders, our law enforcement are behind our residents to make sure that they're safe. Like I said, it's difficult, but we'll do everything to make sure that we protect them. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
So is there anything you could tell us about the background of some of the people that were...
Well, if we're to believe ICE, if we're to believe them, in ICE's judgment, these people have made serious violations of the law. But we have no idea of what these charges are. And if you go and look at a list of who the Madison Police Department is looking for in regards to serious offenses, we have no indication that these are any of the people we've been looking for. So by our standards, we really have no evidence as to the necessity of targeting these specific individuals. That may be otherwise when we learn who it is, but that's part of the problem. They are not sharing with us any of this information.
So you don't even know the names of the people that
That's correct. And we're trying to gather that through Centro, through the work that Fabiola does.
100% Laguera newspaper. Good afternoon, everybody. It's only one Latino community represent my newspaper. That's why I'm here. I would like to know if ICE already arrested some people from Latino community, in which place, what's the recommendation for Latino community?
The only thing we know is what Shiva shared with us.
Acabamos de dar esa información, and we're going to resend that information in writing para poder, so that we can answer the question. But we know 6 people have been arrested today. Not all 6 people are actually Latinos. We know 1 is not. So that's what we know. We don't know. We don't know all the exact locations or the reasons. But we will have a communication that we would certainly want to share with you to send through social media for the community in Spanish. We're writing it as we're speaking.
One of the important things we want to do is we want to find out everyone who was taken by ICE, so we can make contact with them and do our best job to ensure that their rights are protected. That's the first and highest priority, is learning who was taken by ICE into custody.
And where are they being detained?
It's another question we're not sure of. There's several places that they may have taken them, here in the state or in Illinois. So that's another issue.
And I think that's why timing, for those individuals that have been affected, timing is now. So getting in touch with Fabiola for those urgent cases, minutes matter. So if the call again, I'll give the number again, 608-242-6260. It could make a huge difference. Half a day, a couple of hours, all of that.